everybody. My name is Sandra Sheffer. I'm the president of the Democratic Women's Club of Greater Broward. I have the opportunity to be with, to talk to Frantz Jahra McLawrence. Full disclosure, I've known him since we were in law school together, so I've known him a very long time. And I know him to be a very competent attorney, and he practices law in Broward County, Florida. I'm gonna have him introduce himself to everyone, and today we're gonna get educated on the judges that are running to represent, to be judges in the county court and circuit court of Broward County. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what your experiences are, and then we're going to go ahead and then start this conversation about the judges that are running.
Okay, great. So good afternoon, everyone. As Sandra mentioned, I'm Jahra McLawrence. I'm an attorney in Broward County. The crux of my practice, the major part of my practice is criminal defense. I also do some personal injury and some first-party home insurance claims. I've been an attorney here in Broward County since 2003, so we're talking about 17 years here in Broward County, with my base anyways in Broward County. I've practiced all over the state. I ran for judge in 2010 and again in 2014. I'm a former public defender. So in full disclosure, as Sandra said, I tend to be biased, more biased than not, for those candidates that come out of the public defender's office because I'm more familiar with what we went through as public defenders. And I'm more closely affiliated with those candidates than others. But I try not to let that completely prejudice me against other candidates, but I just want to be completely transparent. Additionally, I also want to be completely transparent and inform the viewers here that lawyers by rule are limited in the things that they can say about judges. The Florida Supreme Court, for some reason, the Florida bar comes down hard on lawyers when they criticize judges. So even though we fight for everyone else's First Amendment rights, our First Amendment rights are curtailed when it comes to criticizing judges. Meaning that
we're not here to criticize. We're here just to educate and inform, right? To just give some information. The information that we're providing is public record. It's just a matter of, people just don't have the opportunity to, either appear in front of them or attend all of the other forums that these judges voluntarily participated in. So the information that we're going to provide today is stuff that they provided to clubs and organizations. They answered these questions. So we're not going to say anything outside of information that wasn't already provided to the public.
I'm gonna say they're terrible. That's what I'm gonna
No, we ain't gonna say they're terrible. We're just gonna be like, just be a little careful of certain records, because one of the, because we're in the middle of a reform right now, right? We're trying to set up a criminal justice system that could be fairer to more people and more inclusive of more people, because the criminal justice system tends to be extremely black and brown, even though the county isn't 60-70% black and brown, but that's who makes up the criminal justice system. So we want people who are going to be in, not only judges, but even the ones that are running for state attorney, public defender, for the sheriff. We want to be real careful about who we vote for, because we're like in a very pivotal time right now, I think, in American history, that we really can see a lot of change. We can see a lot of progressive people on the bench. We understand that judges' positions are nonpartisan, so it's not about like, oh, they're going to do something for a Democrat that it's not going to do for a Republican. That's not what this is about. But we need to be careful and make sure that these judges' records are that they're fair and that they don't have biases that are coming out in the courtroom when they're making sentence determinations. Is that a way to say it? It's like when they're deciding how to sentence people?
Well, I mean, all that being said, but we all know that judges don't leave their biases and prejudices at their homes. They bring it with them on the bench, and too often it affects people of color. So in as much as I can, quote unquote, keep it real, I will.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to keep it as real as we can. And then, I have some opinions. I don't know a lot of the judges because I mainly practice in immigration court. And that's why I wanted to speak to someone who is familiar, you know, with Broward County, you know, a lot of the ways that Broward County works. I have appeared in some of the judges before, mainly when they were on the bench doing family cases, because I do some family law cases. And I also used to take some of my students when I taught at a different university, not the one where I currently teach. I used to take my students in the bond court in order for them to observe trials. And, you know, maybe sometime if they allowed us to go in to see jury selection, I would take them in. So I've seen some judges in limited roles, not in limited scopes. And I've also done some coverage work. So I've appeared in front of some of the judges, not all of the judges that are running, just a few of them. So, but I wanted someone who has more of an experience there that would be able to speak on that, because I didn't want to take on a task that I wasn't fully qualified to do all alone.
Sure. So just one more thing.
Yes.
I am in Dominica in the middle of the West Indies. So from time to time you hear some chickens in the. So, you know, I'll try to mute my mic as much as possible, but if that happens, that's why it's happening.
Let it be a real experience. Let it be a real experience. You know, that's awesome. And it's interesting you say that, right? Because we are in the middle of a pandemic. And so what court looks like is very different right now, right? Than what it was like before March. And I actually had a family case with a judge who, she really handled the whole thing extremely well. So we have, because they're doing some of the hearings by Zoom, and uncontested divorces is one of the cases that lends itself to be done well by Zoom, right? So you would think. But then, you know, we have some clients that are very technologically challenged. And so, you know, you have someone coming in a video sideways or whatever, but it just so happened that the day I had that hearing with that particular judge, the lawn person was there, right? And so we're doing this hearing, and then we see the guy cutting the grass, like walking by. So it's like all of this sound on top of clients who don't know how to use the phone, who don't know how to use the Zoom, and we have the interpreter coming in sideways, and you know, and so it was just one of those experiences. So the fact that you're gonna have like it's gonna be a farm behind you when you're you know, you're doing this, that's okay, because you know, most of us are working from home because we're trying to be safe. And so yeah, so I have twins in my house, so they may come down while we're talking, and you might get some of that noise too. So it's all good. It's definitely all good.
Shall we get started?
Okay then. All right. So the first group that we're going to talk about, so we're going to do the county court judges first. And the first group has, I believe, oh, this is alphabetical. Nope, I got the wrong, sorry. I had already prepared myself and then I messed myself up, right? Isn't that how it goes? Like you're prepared and then you're not prepared? Okay, so the first group we're going to deal with is county court judges, and they're running in group 22. So the two judges in that group is Allison Gilman, and I believe Casey Mills is the opponent. Do you want to talk about them first, or do you want to say who it is that you would choose in that particular group?
I went with the person that the Sun Sentinel chose, which is Allison Gilman.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. First of all, with all of these choices, I don't think I have anything bad to say about any one of the candidates. So I don't know Mr. Mills. I have nothing good or bad to say about Mr. Mills. I do know Allison Gilman. I have seen her in the courtroom. I have seen the way that she's presents herself. She's always very professional in her approach to representing her clients, in her approach to the court, and her approach to other attorneys. And that's the reason why I chose her. That's the reason why she was my choice for the judge in that particular seat.
Right. And again, with that full disclosure, we'll say that she was part of the Broward County Public Defender's Office, that she did work there. And in terms of her experience, she has like 85% criminal experience in terms of litigation. So it's 85% criminal, and she did 15% civil cases. And she has about 200 verdicts under her belt. That's her experience. And she's been a member of the Broward Bar since 1992. So she does have extensive experience in the criminal justice system. She came out of the public defender's office, and you know, she has a lot of community service experience. She worked with trial lawyers, the National Association of Trial Lawyers, Association of Women Trial Lawyers. She also said that she's part of Broward County Humane Society, and she also has an award for being Public Defender of the Year. So we know that she's good with advocacy. So those are some of the things about Allison. A little bit about Casey Mills, in case somebody wants to know about him. he has been a member of the bar for 36 years, and he had mainly a civil practice. So he's done like 95% civil cases, 5% criminal cases. He spent a lot of time. He doesn't really have any experience, trial experience, the verdict, but he has done some probate cases in family court. But I think mainly that's what his practice was, and he spent a year doing traffic court as a magistrate. Were you going to add something?
Yeah, it says there that he was an arbitrator for the National Association of Security Dealers, and as you mentioned before, he was a traffic court magistrate in Broward County for about 1.5 years. 1.5
years, yes. And his community service, he's active in his church. He says the Rotary Club. He's done some Little League, and then he's part of the Florida Bar and the Broward County Bar Association. So those are that's the information that he provided. There's some other things, but again, we don't make any negative comments about any judges. But from that group, I would agree with Jahra that Allison Gilman seems to be the most qualified for this particular position. And I also have some full disclosure on my part. I was also a public defender, but not in Broward County. I was a public defender in Sarasota, Florida. So I do have I'm more defense-minded but I wasn't a defense attorney for a public defender for a very long time. But I did, when I got out of law school, I did work in the public defender's office in Sarasota. So I may be a little more defense-minded than I am prosecutorial. Yeah. All right. So Group 22. We're supporting Allison Gilman, right? All right. So the next group is Group 27, Broward County County Clerk Judge. It's Group 27, and in that race we have Phoebe Rebecca Francois, and she's running against Jacob E. Siegel. Your thoughts?
So I agree with the Sun Sentinel again, where I think they're definitely on point. I forget the quote that they had, but I think it's something to the extent where they stated that Phoebe Rebecca Francois is clearly the best choice in this particular race, and I have to echo that. I knew Phoebe when she was a public defender. I was a public defender as well. When I came into the public defender's office in Broward County, she was there. She tried some of the toughest cases in the Broward County's office, and you couldn't tell Phoebe nothing about her clients. I mean, none of her clients were guilty as far as she was concerned. If you question that, she would put you in your place because all of her clients were innocent unless proven guilty, and she stood by that.
That's right. And, that's the Constitution. Innocent until proven guilty.
Nah, not unless. She let you know it was unless.
Unless. Because even if they were proven guilty, they weren't guilty. That was like a technical problem.
Until presupposes they're going to be found guilty, unless puts the burden on the state to prove it. So right. She, and I just remember her because she was, those cases that she tried were the most difficult cases at the public defender's office. And despite that she had this huge caseload of these really, really hard, difficult, tough cases, whenever I went to her with a question, she was always available. She always made herself available. She would send me pertinent case law. She would go over certain trial tactics with me. And she did that not just with me, but with other attorneys in the office. So she always had time. And I'll never forget that. And I always appreciate the way that she approached the practice of law and the way that she approached being professional with her colleagues and with the court. She was just an awesome person, and so I definitely agree with the Sun Sentinel, and I'm voting for Phoebe.
On that case, yeah. And so just some of the information on Judge Francois, because she's actually already a judge and she's running for her seat, right? So she's the incumbent in this particular race. So she's running to keep her seat in the Group 27, and she's been a member of Broward Bar for 25 years. And she was a hearing magistrate. Also, she has that experience, and she's actually tried to be a judge like a number of times, right? And she's definitely a go-getter. I think she tried she says this is public information that she either ran or applied to get appointed as a judge maybe 15 or 16 times before she was finally appointed. And so she worked as a special magistrate. She had her own practice for a long time. She actually worked for the Cochran firm for about 5 years. She was a assistant public defender for about 10 years. And she did do some work while in, I believe, maybe law school or as an internship with the Assistant State Attorney's Office as a certified legal intern. And she has a balanced work in terms of trial work. She has 60% criminal and 40% of her work is civil. And she does have already has some judicial experience in terms of trial work as a judge. 55% of that work was civil and 45% of that work was criminal. And she's very, very engaged in the community, very involved in the community. She's part of Make-A-Wish, Broward Meals on Wheels, Minority Development and Empowerment Incorporation. She's part of the Community Action Agency Board, Diversity Community member. I mean, the list goes on and on. She's a mentor at some of the middle, high school, and even to like law school students. She's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated since 2004, it says. She's been a keynote speaker at several different events. She helps students, like some of the schools have trial team experience, so she's been a judge with trial team for some of the high school students. She was a member of she's a member of the TJ Riddick Bar Association. I believe that's the Broward Black Bar, right? TJ Riddick is for Broward. Yes, she's a member of the Haitian Lawyers Association, Caribbean Bar, Broward Bar, the National Bar Association, Gwen Cherry, Black Women's Bar Association, Broward County Women's Lawyers. I mean, just the list just goes on and on. She also have a lot of honors, right? And one of the honors that she has is that she was Broward County Public Defender's Office Intern of the Year in 1994. She was, when she was in school, she was the most improved trial advocacy student for the criminal law section. She was, in 2018, she was TJ Riddick Bar Association Trailblazer. She got that Trailblazer Award. And she was also recognized by the Lauderhill Regional Chamber of Commerce as a woman of distinction in 2015. So she's definitely, she was also recognized by the Haitian Pharmacists Association and by the Gwen Cherry Women's Law Association. So Judge Phoebe comes with a lot of experience, both in criminal and civil. She's the incumbent sitting judge, and she has a list of not only are her credentials, she has a lot of awards, and she's very service-minded. Do you want to add anything to that before I talk about the person that's running against her?
Well, just what you've already said, that she's got tremendous community service experience, so she's definitely involved in the community.
Okay, yes. And so her opponent is judge, not judge, his name is Jacob Siegel, and he's running. He went to undergrad in Hawaii, and then he started off at Nova's Law School, but transferred to University of Florida and ended up getting his law degree from University of Florida in 1999. He's been a member of the Florida Bar for 20 years. He's not a member of any other state bar. He's done some civil work. He was actually also a public defender in Monroe County. For those who don't know, that's Key West. I've actually interviewed with them, but it's too expensive to live in Key West. So I was just like, yeah, I don't think I can afford to live here. So he was a PD in Monroe. He was also in a public defender's office in Broward for about a year, and then he went out on his own and did private practice. He does mainly personal injury and federal civil litigation cases. Now he's currently doing 100% criminal law. That's what it says. He's never run for office. In terms of community experiences.
1 second. I think it says here that he currently does 100% civil.
Is that what did I say?
You said criminal.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So it did say, you're right. It did say 100%. Oh, okay. 100%. Oh, civil currently 100%, and then criminal after with nothing behind it. So I did misread that. You're correct. And yeah, so that's all of what we have. We don't have it. Well, it also did say that he was the Corpus Juris Secundum Award of Excellence in Torts, and I believe that's something from law school, right? Because we take torts in law school, so that might have been an award he got in law school, right?
But he also mentions here that he volunteered with an organization called Save Our Seas. It's an environmental group, and said he's a single father of 2 boys.
Okay, so that's why it's two of us here, right? Because I'm flipping through the sheets, and I'm glad you saw that, right? Because I was going through it. Yes. Okay, so those are his experiences. I would agree with Jahra with in terms of Phoebe. I believe Phoebe Frantz was the most qualified for that particular seat. She's always she's already in that position, and and unless the incumbent is doing something that shows you that they shouldn't maintain their seat, I think in this particular instance we should keep Judge Phoebe Francois on the bench for Group 27. Okay, so now we're moving on to circuit court. So the first group is Group 16. And I believe Group 16, right? I got to pull out my notes here. There are 3 people running in Group 16. And Judge Dennis Daniel Bailey is the incumbent in this race. And he's running Abby Rifkin Logan and George Odom are the other 2 candidates in this race. I believe George Odom got some sentinel endorsement, right? Do you know if that was the case? Because I know he recently got an endorsement. I'm not sure. I can double check while we're talking. But let's talk about Judge Bailey. What's your thoughts on him?
He's the incumbent in this race.
He's been around for a while.
And he's been a criminal defense attorney for some time, and before that, he was a prosecutor. And I'm going off the top of my head here. Yeah, that's correct. So before that, he was a prosecutor, and then he went into private practice doing private criminal defense, and then he's been a judge. Let me see here. I think he's been a judge for 6 years, if I'm not mistaken.
I was mistaken. Yeah, Sentinel said to re-elect Dennis Bailey. They endorsed the incumbent. So they said keep stability in the courthouse.
So here's the thing with Dennis Bailey that I think folks need to be aware of is that Dennis Bailey has been brought before the Florida bar for conduct unbecoming a judge, basically. He's been cited for misconduct. He was found guilty for misconduct, and he was publicly reprimanded for misconduct. So, which basically means the Florida bar told him, you were a bad judge, don't do it again. Here's a fine, pay a fine. He got to keep his job. I'm not voting for Dennis Bailey. The other candidates in this, and I guess I'm not sure if you want to talk more about his qualifications and his background before we move on to the other candidates. But I just wanted to point that important point out because most people wouldn't know who this judge is, what his background is, and the fact that he's been disciplined for professional conduct. Yeah, and he said he responded to that, right? And he said he had what he did was he said something to an attorney in the presence of a jury, and it became problematic, and he was reprimanded for that behavior. He said he says, I received a reprimand for not maintaining the highest standard of conduct and for not being courteous to an attorney when I disciplined his behavior in a jury trial without first excusing the jury from the courtroom, which may have adversely affected the client's right to a fair trial. He said, but he puts in parentheses that ultimately the client won the trial, and then for not immediately removing myself from the case when asked to do so by the attorney. So, that's his explanation of what happened. Like a very convenient prepared about, I was reprimanded because I did it in front of the jury. No, that's not why you were reprimanded. You were reprimanded because you were being unprofessional in your conduct towards a lawyer. That's why you were reprimanded. It wasn't because you did it in front of the jury.
Right. He said he apologized to the attorney in writing when asked to do so. And he said he apologized for his error. And he said he is not repeated and will not repeat that again. So, yeah.
So can we move on to the other candidates?
Okay, yeah, because it was another. Also, I want to say one other thing, because because we're gonna talk about a judge that got some drama going on like later on. But I'm just gonna talk about how about like this one actually did some stuff, admitted to doing some stuff, and he got to keep working, right? And so, and then he goes like, he said he did like 4 death penalty trials. Like, I failed to recognize the toll that a level of professional stress took on me and how it affected my judicial temperament. And then he said, at my request, I had my assignment changed out of criminal division temporarily to step away from jury work and high-profile criminal trials, right? So he said he behaved that way because of the stress of his job, and he was allowed to do that. That's going to be interesting. That's interesting. Okay, so Judge Bailey is a no for you. So we have Abby Sheila Rifkin Logan. She's been around for a long time. She's been a member of the Florida Bar for 38 years, it says.
Right.
She's also, she went to UF for law school, but went to UF undergrad. So she's a member of Gator Nation. Yep.
Now she's a former prosecutor down in Dade County.
In Dade County.
I've heard good things about her from some of my Dade County colleagues, both in the prosecutor's office and in the private defense field. And I got to meet her when she was running last time. This is the second time running for judge. So I got to meet her last time, and I got to talk to her last time. So in my dealings with her, she seemed like she was a bit flustered. But I guess it's the process. You're running for an office, and people are coming at you from all different angles, and you can get frustrated. And I think she was, at the time I met her, she was a bit frustrated because she could see that in Broward County, it seemed like it was like a Broward County old boys network, and you weren't part of it because you're a Dade County attorney, right? And then I could see that, so I recognized that in the brief time I met with her, perhaps that was it. But still, I think if you're a candidate for an office and you're meeting people who are trying to meet you and they're trying to learn more about you, you kind of have to try to smooth your edges off a little bit, until you get to know the people in the community whom you want to represent. So I don't have anything bad to say about her. Just that one experience that I had with her, just that one brush when she ran last time. But I will say that my colleagues from Dade County have nothing but good things to say about her, both in the state attorney's office and in the private defense firms.
Okay, and it says that her community involvement, that she's part of the Broward County Women Lawyers Association, South Broward Bar Association, Florida Association of Women Lawyers, Awards and Nominating Committee, Broward County Bar, Broward County Trial Lawyers. She's been a member of the Florida Bar since 1982. She was also part of the Grievance Committee Chair. She got a Florida Bar President's Pro Bono Service Award. Oh no, she was on the committee for the since 2019. She's a member of Benign Birth Justice Association, and she's a subsection chair of Florida Rules Committee for the Florida Bar. She was from 1984 to 1986. And it seems like a lot of her service started in 2011. All right. She's part of several.
She does have some teaching experience as well. I'm not sure if I don't know if you mentioned that, but she has some teaching experience back in the University of Florida, it looks like from 2005. And then she had some teaching experience as an adjunct professor at FIU since 2007.
Yes, it says she was a Florida team leader for the training program. That was from 2000. I guess she still does that. She teaches trial skills to prosecutors and public defenders around the states and the United Kingdom. Her practice is mainly 99% criminal, 1% civil. She's taken about 175 or more jury trials to a verdict, and 100 or more bench trials to a verdict. So she has a lot of litigation experience. She's been a member of Florida Bar for 38 years, but a member of the Broward Bar for 8 years. Right. So
she's definitely impressive to me. I thought she was impressive last time she won in Broward. I didn't think she got a fair shake from some of the places she went to be a candidate. She's definitely impressive. She's not my selection in the race, but I can't take anything away from her.
Okay, so the last candidate that's in this race is George Odom. He's been a member of the Florida Bar for 7 years and 7 months. So I think he's the young one in the group. He graduated from Florida Coastal Law School, I believe, in 2012. It seemed like he did most of his schools in the Jacksonville area. He went to Florida State College, which is a community college in Jacksonville, University of North Florida, which is in Jacksonville, and he got Florida Coastal Law School of Law, which is also in Jacksonville, Florida. He has his own firm. He was a member of he worked in the Public Defender's Office from February 2013 to May 2016. And he's also worked for several different attorneys. He worked, for the 4th Judicial Circuit. I believe that's the Public Defender's Office in Jacksonville, Florida also. He has honors, like he was a South Florida Business Law Journal. I guess he wrote an article in 2017, and he was one of the under 40 for Legacy Magazine South Florida in 2017. That's actually a pretty, bit of a big deal here. Anything you want to add that I missed? Anything that I missed?
A couple of things. He has tremendous community experience. He's been a member of the Florida Bar Military Affairs Committee, the Florida Bar Family Law Committee, Virgil Hawkins, Florida chapter, and that's a Black bar chapter in the state of Florida.
Yes.
I believe he was one of the officers in the T.J. Reddick Bar Association. I believe he might have been the president of the T.J. Reddick Bar Association, which is a bar association in the county of Broward. And he has, as I said,
he has a lot.
He's been involved with the William Dandy Middle School mock trial coach, New Mount Olive Baptist Church. So he's been very involved.
Yes.
George is a devil dog, is what we call them. I am a Navy squid. That's what we're called. People who served in the Navy are called squids. People who are Marines are called jarheads. They're called devil dogs, and that's what George is. George is a jarhead. He's a former Marine. He's an all-around great guy. He's got loads of integrity, and I can tell you that I didn't know. I thought that guys who came out of the military and became judges, they were just going to be too hard A. I thought they were going to be too hard A on the bench, but they've been surprisingly great. Some of the best judges we have in Broward are former military guys. You talk about Ed Merrigan, who's a former Army guy. He's actually in the reserves of the Army right now, and he's a judge. He's fantastic. He's over the Veterans Court there in Broward County. We have Judge Fry, who's a former Marine. We had Judge Murphy, who recently retired. He was a former Marine also. He's great judges. And I think George will just add to that legacy of former military members who go on to be fantastic judges. His integrity is unrivaled. He's just, sometimes I've told him that I think he's just too honest for his own good. So I think George would be a great judge. He's the youngest one in this bunch, and it's time for new blood. And I vote for George.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, he's Phi Alpha fraternity.
I saw that. Yeah, he's an Alpha. My brother's an Alpha, so I'm a little biased when it comes to that too. So yeah, he's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, and he actually has a well-rounded community service. He's a member of like the League of Women Voters. He just does a lot of stuff. He's doing some stuff with St. Jude's Hospital. He's part of the planning zone. And then he's a member of the Alumni Association of his law school. So yeah, he's doing a lot of different kind of things, and you kind of need that, right? We need someone that's really well-rounded to be on the bench. So he's done a lot of things, and for him to make that 40 under 40 list, that definitely means that he's made sure that the community knows who he is, and he's very engaged, because in order for you to get that nomination, you have to have a lot of community engagement for that to happen. So for that group, George Odom, right? We're agreeing on that. All right.
Yeah.
Good deal. So that was group number 16. That's what that group is called. That was group 16. Okay, so now we're moving to group 18. This was an interesting race, right? Because I've seen these ladies. It's two ladies in this race. It's Patty Englander Henning and Kirsten Weisberg-Patowitz in this race, right? And there's a big age difference, right? One of the ladies on this, Patty, I shouldn't call her Patty, well, Judge Patty has been on the bench for about 40 years. And I believe Kirsten is about 40, right? So it's a very interesting dynamic. And when you see them talking, it's just real interesting. So what are we gonna do? We gonna keep the lady that's been there for like 40 years, or is it time for someone else to come in? And the interesting about this race is that it's a very specialized court, right? This is the one that does like real complex litigation. This particular group, they deal with like real complex litigation, and it's supposed to be a specialized court. Go ahead.
Let's say this up, because just because you get elected to that group does not mean that you will sit in that particular seat.
On that court, okay.
So you could be transferred, like for instance, whoever wins this race could be transferred over to the criminal division. They could be transferred over to, I don't know, foreclosures. So it doesn't mean that because you win this race that that's going to be what you preside over.
So that's interesting, because one of the things, so I'm going to talk about because I've seen a lot of the panels, right? And one of the things is this judge, she doesn't do a lot of trials. And she said one of the main reasons, we're talking about the incumbent in this race, she doesn't do a lot of trials because she's in a very specialized unit. And that's why I had the misunderstanding that if you win, this is where you're gonna stay. And apparently she's been there for a very long time, and she does those particular cases. So it's good to know, and that's why we do these things, so we can all learn that, if, for instance, if Kirsten wins, she might be moved around. But this particular judge has been in that particular unit, and she's been there for a number of years. I don't know if it's preference or whatever it is.
I think one of the knocks on this particular, on the incumbent from the legal bar in Broward County has been that they don't see her. Like, she disappears, she's not there. I don't know if that's been brought out in the
it has. They say, like, she's out the door at 4 o'clock or something like that. All of what I'm saying, like, you can go and look up a video and you'll see this too. So I'm not talking bad about her, but I know one of the biggest criticisms that I've
heard much earlier than 4 o'clock. So I've heard it.
Like, you can.
I've heard of 12 p.m. finds Judge Henning in the courtroom. That's a good day.
Okay, listen, I don't know. I just know that's one of the things. They're like, no, she be gone. And she doesn't do a lot of trials, and she says she doesn't do them because it's specialized unit. And I think that might be one of the times where, 40 years is a long time. She's been a judge since like the 80s. So I don't know. I don't know. Is it time for someone new?
Time to go. Give somebody else a chance. Lord have mercy.
Go retire. Don't you got some grandkids or something? I mean, like, God forgive me. I shouldn't do that. Everybody don't have to have grandkids. I don't know. But yeah, so this is definitely an interesting race. So like we said, and she's also a member of Gator Nation, right? So she got a law degree from UF in like 1976. I was older than Jahra, okay? And I was only 6 years old that year. So that just goes to show, so she was there since 1976. She's been a member of the Florida Bar for almost 44 years. She's also a member of the DC Bar for like 41 years, and she's been a judge in Broward County since 1985. She's on the circuit court actually before that. So she's been on the circuit court since 1985, but she was on the county court in 1981. So she's been a judge in Broward County since 1981. And then she was assistant state attorney in the appellate division before that. And then she worked for the AG's office for a couple of years, I guess right when she got out of law school. So she says her litigation experience is 15% civil and 85% criminal. So in terms of judicial experience, she's been doing it for a very long time. She talks about temperament and her community service is that she's a member of the Florida Bar, the DC Bar, Broward County Bar, Florida Conference of Circuit Court Judges. She's part of Temple called Ami Emmanuel, I guess that's religious, Temple Menorah Benai Birth Justice Unit. She's one of the founding members, and she's part of her homeowners association. That's her community engagement. What else you got to add, Jahra?
Nothing more on Judge Henning.
Oh, but she has, okay, so she has an award. So let's see what her award was. So she was a 2018 Judge of the Year for the Fort Lauderdale chapter of the American Board of Trial Advocates, ABOTA. Okay. So now we have Kirsten Weisberg Padowitz. So she is, she's graduated from Nova, 1999, been a member of the Florida Bar for 21 years, been a member of Broward Bar for 4 years. She was a state attorney. She was in the state attorney's office. She was
also a public defender, very interestingly. She's maybe the only one I know, and any one of these, the only candidate I know has been both a public defender and a prosecutor here in Broward County.
Yes, yeah. So she was a public defender first, and then she went into the state attorney's office where she stayed the longest. Like, what do you think about that? I'm always a little bit like, now, why you did that, right? You were like a PD, and then you gonna be a state attorney. Like, why are you doing that? Okay, you ain't got to comment. Okay, all right. So you gonna say that? Because sometimes I'm like, So I'm gonna just say something. There's a lady that's running for state attorney, right? And she used to do probation. She was a probation officer, and then she went and became a state attorney. Went to law school to become a prosecutor. I want her to tell me why, because to me, some of those transitions are very interesting. I want to know, like, what was going on that made you make that particular transition. So I want some understanding. I need some understanding. I need some clarification. I don't think I'm gonna ever get it, but I would love for them to explain that.
The funny thing is that I usually see people go from the state attorney's office to become public defenders. I think this is maybe the first time that I've seen someone go from the public defender's office to become a prosecutor. So
and stayed there for a long time.
Yeah.
She stayed there for a very long time. I think she was there for a long time, like 16, 17 years in the state attorney's office. And then she went to work for Kenneth Padowitz. I don't know if that's a family member or a spouse.
Yeah, that's her husband. Her husband was also a prosecutor at the Broward County Prosecutor's Office. And he's now in private practice doing private defense. So she worked with him. Okay, so I see that. All right, yeah, and then she started her own practice too, doing more appellate work or something like that. And so her experience is 85% civil and 15% criminal, even though she was a public defender for a long time. So, I mean, a state attorney and a public defender, but she did criminal work for most of her experience as an attorney. So in community engagement, says she's part of the Florida Bar Grievance Committee. She was a member of the T.J. Riddick Bar Association, Broward Women's Alliance, Federal Bar, Western Bar. She's part of the United States District, Southern District, Broward County Bar, Benign Birth Justice Unit, State Attorney. I think she did some work with the State Attorney's Broward County Ceiling Expungement Program, League of Women Voters, those type of things, right? So who you got in this one? that bunch. I don't know. Who you got? So I chose Kristen Padowitz, and the reason I chose her was because I've had experience with her before, and when she was a prosecutor at the Broward State Attorney's Office, and the experience, mostly when I have experience with Broward County Prosecutor's Office, I would say that 80% of that experience is an unpleasant experience.
Mm-hmm.
20%, so she was part of the 20% where it was not an unpleasant experience. I'm not gonna say that 20% was a pleasant experience by no stretch. Maybe about 10% is pleasant, but at least 20% is not unpleasant, in other words.
Okay.
So I don't have any experience at all with Judge Henning. I don't know anything about her other than what goes around the scuttlebucket in Broward County from the Broward County lawyers. So all I know is about her alleged
unavailability,
leaving the courthouse early and all that. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you've been there 40 years. Maybe you're just tired of the job. You know, you want to leave. You want to get out of here. You want to feed your cats or something. I don't know. But maybe it's time for some new blood. So,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's definitely that's I don't know, but yeah, I heard. I mean, you heard earlier. I heard like she be gone, like see ya, you know. And you know, when you get a certain age, you are allowed to do that. but you shouldn't be able to do that at the expense of people that have cases in court that they want to have get resolved, right? So, you know, so Padowitz is it. She's feisty. She's very interested in every time they're about to do their presentation, I'm like, oh Lord, there it goes, and it's very different personality. So it's interesting to watch. It's definitely interesting to watch. I enjoy it, and every time I see there's going to be a judicial panel, I'm like, yep, where's my popcorn? Because it was about to get started. Okay, all right. So our next group is 27. Is group 27. This has an interesting, I don't want to say cast of characters, but it has some interesting folks. And I've actually seen them on several panels too. So we have Meredith Chaikin Weiss, we have Matthew Isaac Destry, and Frank David Letty. I have experience with one of those judges. So
wait a minute.
My experience first, and then you tell me who you're going with?
I have Destry, and I have Lede, and there's a third person?
There's a third person. Her name, she didn't do her thing. Meredith Weiss Chaikin. I saw her on a panel, and she was on her phone the whole time. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm not sure if she's in that race. I only see the two.
It's three of them in that race. She's in that race.
Okay, well, I don't have any.
Yeah, we don't have information on her because she shows up sometimes, you know, and I don't know, sometimes for some people it might be strategy, but she's in that race, and I've seen her in panels. And like I said, one of the times that I saw her, she, you know, they had the video on everybody, and she was on her phone. So that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
So well, I can't say anything about her. We don't have information, and I don't want to make, you know, I don't want to say nothing about her that I don't know, but I did know that I saw her in a panel, and she just, you know, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Let's do a Destry and Letty.
I've had experience with Frank Lede. He's a former prosecutor down in Miami-Dade. Mm-hmm. And you probably will never hear me advocate for a former prosecutor for almost anything. But this guy is something else. He's a different kind of a person. Forget about the label of a prosecutor or public defender. He's just a different sort of person. I had a case where he was the supervisor in the criminal division. It was a pretty serious case. It was one of the gang unit cases. And my client was a young black kid. He was 18 years old. And he was looking at 13 felony counts, 13 third-degree felony counts. So he was looking at up to 65 years in prison, you know, a whole bunch of fines and everything like that. I think he scored like something like 13 years at the bottom of his state sentencing guidelines, which means that if he was convicted, the judge would have to sentence him to 13 years unless the judge found some reason not to sentence him to 13 years. So the division prosecutor was honest with me and frank with me. He told me there's nothing he could do about it other than a conviction in prison. And if I wanted to do anything better, I needed to talk to his supervisor, Frank Lede, which I did. I talked to Frank, or Mr. Lede. I told him that, listen, this is my client's first offense ever. This was an attractive nuisance sort of thing that was set up by the police department and he decided to take it upon himself to do something that, I don't want to get too much into the details of the case, but he decided to do something that was entrepreneurial. Okay. And it has nothing to do with us, let me say that. But he decided to do something that was sort of entrepreneurial, and he got caught up in it. So to my surprise, Lede asked to meet my client's parents, which I was very shocked. I was like, you want to meet his parents? He was like, yeah. He said, you said that his family is very hard working, his parents are very hard working, I want to meet him. So I brought his mother and his father. They sat down, they spoke, he listened to them, he talked to them, he wanted to know why this happened. You know, he was very, I don't know how to describe it, but you know, it was very nice to see that he sat down, he actually listened to what they had to say. Then he asked if he could speak to the client. He spoke to the client. And then the end of it all was he formulated a plan that would result in this particular client not being adjudicated, which means that he would not be a convicted felon, he would not lose his voting rights, and he was going to be placed on probation, he was going to be placed on supervision. There were certain other things he needed to do, but he was out of the prison system.
Right.
And Mr. Lede wanted to see how he progressed. And of course, this young man ended up finishing school, ended up going and taking some community college courses and bettering himself. Now he works 2 jobs, he has a family of his own. So it really paid off for him because frankly, they saw something in him, or he had the patience to at least listen and then give him a second opportunity. So I've never met Frank Lede since he became a judge in Broward County. And that's just the way that I am, because even one of my former office mates is judge now, and I never go and visit him because I never want to give the appearance of impropriety.
Right.
So I don't go and visit these folks. But I know Frank Lede, and I have experience with him, and that's why I voted for him.
And that's a great thing, because that's one of the things that I think is important, right? Because and sometimes when these judges hand out these sentences, it's basically like they just threw that person's life away. They determined that person's life didn't have any value, right? Because if you sentence an 18-year-old to 80 years or 50 years or 30 years or something, you're basically saying that there's no value in this child's life. So it's amazing and awesome to hear that he at least took the opportunity to get to know this kid, because people do make mistakes and they do some stuff that, you know, it wasn't a right thing to do at that time. But does that mean that like the rest of my life gotta go to the garbage because of one decision that I made on that particular day? So it's wonderful to hear that someone's willing to do that. And you know, and that's another thing that's happening with part of the criminal justice reform, is that they want to find alternative to sentencing, right? Because sending people to prison can't always be the answer. That can't be the only option when someone does something that's not the right thing at that particular moment. So there's a lot of a movement to kind of do differently in terms of sentencing. So I also have an experience with Judge Lede, and mine was in family court. And again, I practice mainly immigration law. When I'm going into family court or even criminal court, there's usually some immigration component to it. And I had a client that was getting a divorce. And my client, I told him, come with an interpreter because you don't speak enough English for us to do this hearing, right? And the great thing was that Judge Lede, Judge Lede, he speaks Creole, he speaks French, and he can, and he can get it to sound close enough to Creole. So we were able to do the hearing because he's also multilingual, right? So he speaks a lot of different languages. He was actually very patient with my client, because I had a hearing with another judge. My client came in with no interpreter. They wouldn't let me interpret for them, and we ended up having to reset the hearing. So it was good that he was able to do that. And then I also told him that I was fluent in Haitian Creole too, and he allowed me to ask some of the questions. And then, he was able to also swear him in and everything like that. So, and I think that's needed because, a lot of the things that happen in the courtroom, like if you need an interpreter, you can usually always get a Spanish speaking interpreter that works with the courthouse. And it's rare that you can get an interpreter that works at the courthouse that's Creole speaking, even though there's a significant population of Broward County that's Creole speaking people. So I have to say that I would give him kudos just for him being able to do that. And he's adding just that language to the bench, right? Like, to me, that's great in and of itself. And he also has a very multicultural background in himself. I believe he was born in Puerto Rico, but he grew up in St. Bart's. Like, his family was one of the founding families of St. Bart's. So he has like that whole Caribbean vibe that's important. And I think that kind of adds up, people's energy and perspective and how they do things. So I too had a good experience when I appeared in front of his courtroom, and he will definitely be getting my vote. But there's another person in that race. There's two others. We said what we're gonna say about the other one, and Matthew Destry. What, if anything, do you want to say about him? Because I only know one thing about him.
Okay, so I would definitely not vote for Destry by any stretch. So as we've said we talked about Judge Lede giving folks second chances and having the patience to listen to people and not just flying off the handle and sentencing people to what amounts to the rest of their life in jail. Now on the other spectrum, we have someone like Destry, who, when he was a judge, had someone who violated their probation by, I believe, getting a driving while license suspended or something ridiculous like that. Right. And then he went and sentenced that person. And this is just all going by memory, so you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he tried to give the person a 60-year sentence or something.
Yes, that's what I know about him. Yeah, he tried to sentence him to 60 years.
This was a young Black kid. And I'm not saying that this young Black kid was an angel. He was on probation, I believe, for a violent offense. But 60 years for what amounts to a violation of probation, with a violation of probation with driving on a suspended license, is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
that's throwing someone's life away. That's like you have no value. That's literally saying that your life has no value when you sentence someone to 60 years.
Now, did I hear about whether or not he suffered any consequences for that? Because I seem to remember some sort of investigation or something.
Yeah, so what ended up happening was that incident caused a lot of community uproar. Like, people were just like, are you kidding me? It was in the papers. I mean, like, people were like upset about it. And apparently, this is where he explains it, Judge Destry, because he used to be a judge before, and then I think he resigned or something like that, and then now he's running again. So apparently he had a conversation with some community members about this particular case, and there was a complaint about ex parte communication, and they brought the case up to the JNC, but I think it didn't go anywhere because he resigned before there was a decision on that complaint that was filed for him talking to these people outside of the.
You're working somewhere, and someone brings up the fact that you have a conflict of interest where you work, and you're about to be investigated. And before you're investigated, you resign, which stops the investigation, and then you're able to run again to that very same position. No, brother.
It was something like that. Yeah, I think that's the timeline, right? So yeah, that's what happened. I believe he did, because the investigation ended up getting halted, right. And then because he resigned, and because people were just like, dude, what you doing? And then he kind of, and then it was a couple years ago, so he let some time pass. Hopefully people will forget. But we're in the world of like Google and the internet right now, so it's kind of hard to forget stuff because somebody just gonna put your name in there, all your business coming out, right? So yeah, so it was some of that. So I think he did. I believe he did resign, and then now he's running again. So he's a no, right?
Yeah, Frank LaVey is the man. That one there is easy.
That's an easy one. Yeah. Like I said, I also had a good experience with him too. And I know some people that knew.
The Staples easy button right there.
So what?
That's the Staples easy button.
That's the Staples easy button, right? No ifs and buts about it. We're good. Yeah, particularly, yeah. So, okay. And so now the next one, right? We have Judge Dale Cohen and Ian Richards. And Judge Dale Cohen is the incumbent in this race. And he's also one of the judges that was involved in, I think he had a case that involved the same-sex marriage. Like, he had a same-sex marriage case, right? That went to, why are you shaking your head? Wasn't he involved in that?
Would you say he was involved in what? I'm sorry.
I think one of the same-sex marriage cases, right? Or like either like he had something to do with it, or he was one of the first judges to divorce a same-sex couple or something like that. No?
I don't know.
And I know he was a super lawyer, but I believe he did have something to do with the marriage cases, I think. All right, so tell me what you know about him, and I'm going to go through my notes again.
All right, so what I know about him is that he is one of the two judges, or one of the two persons who are running for judge who were disciplined by the Florida bar. Now, his case is even more, to me, it's more egregious than Dennis Bailey's case. He was also accused of and convicted of misconduct as a judge. And just like Dennis Bailey, he was reprimanded, allowed to keep his position. In his particular case, it had something to do with his wife, where his wife, he called his wife as a witness in a case. It's very involved, it's very intricate. I don't remember all the details, but the manner in which he conducted himself, to me, was even more egregious than what happened with Judge Bailey. To me, he's definitely a no. I voted for his opponent already, Ian Richards. Ian was I think Ian is the first Caribbean American judge to ever be elected to the Broward bench.
Yeah, and then the people started running against him, and then he ran for re-election, and so they ran against him, and he lost his seat the last time, and he's running again. And he also has a little claim to fame, right? Ian Richards was the judge that's there was a domestic case in front of him, right. And the person tried to fight the woman like in the courtroom, and he jumped over the bench, right, and went and protected this victim in his courtroom, like, and it made like international news. So and it was like instinct, it was on instinct. He saw that sister, about to be abused in his courtroom, and he came to her defense in front of everyone, right, in the courtroom, and didn't even think twice about it, right? And that's kind of, huh?
Where was the bailiff?
Where was everybody? There was an attorney sitting next to this woman, and he jumped over. I mean, like, he literally didn't even walk around the bench. He literally jumped over the table down to the ground to go and protect this woman. And she had an attorney on one side of her. It was a bailiff. It was a whole bunch of people in that courtroom. He had to jump off that bench, and as soon as he saw it, he jumped off that bench and to defend her. So I mean, that alone right there is respectful, because he didn't even. That's like a selfless act. That's an absolute, because I've been in courtrooms where things kind of weren't looking good, and the judge got scared, and she literally, they have a door next to their bench that they could walk into and avoid the whole courtroom. So I've seen situations get testy in the courtroom, and instead of the judge confronting it, they go to their back door, get in, and just listen, y'all handle whatever's happening out there. I don't want to be a part of that. So I think that was definitely, heroic, a great thing on his part, and it speaks to his character and who it is. And I know, and I've seen panels with both of them, and Judge Cohen is one of the ones, he always talks about how he's a super lawyer, and he's certified, board certified trial lawyer or civil cases and all of these different types of things. And let me tell you how he answered his discipline issue. They said, have you ever been disciplined? He says, yes. He said, in 2009, I was disciplined by the Florida Supreme Court for holding a hearing where a lawyer requested that I disqualify myself from a case. He said, I granted this motion, but held a 5-minute hearing on the matter, as he was claiming in his motion that there was an argument between him and my wife. I intended to simply clear the air at the time. It was my understanding that I could legally, ethically hold that hearing based on case law and a class I took at Judicial College 3 years prior when I became a judge. I was incorrect, and the action violated the judicial canons. In the court's ruling, they issued a reprimand and stated that although I had violated the canons, that I had a reputation as a smart and conscientious judge, that I would not repeat the action, as it was a one-time incident. Since that time, I have served Broward County with no further ethical violations. I regretted my actions that day and apologized at the time. That's how he explained it.
Dude, that's the only action you got caught for. That's all that. I mean, when you show up to court with a black defendant and you tell them, listen, this is first-time offense, you know what the response is from the prosecution? That's the first time your defendant got caught doing whatever it is he was doing.
Right, exactly.
That's the same thing I say to you. The same thing that you would say to a black defendant. And I mean, you don't have to be a lawyer, judge, to know that you don't call your wife as a witness in a case where the person is saying something about your wife. Come on, dude. Really?
And that was you was mad, why you talking about my wife, bruh? You know what I'm saying? You just supposed to just be I can't get involved in this because it don't look good.
Intimidating is that if you're on the other side, that the judge is calling the person that you are that you complained about, who happens to be the judge's wife, as a witness.
Mm. So, yeah. So, that's the story, and he's sticking to it. All right, so we talking about, go ahead. Yeah, so that's an easy button too. Group 30 is Ian, Ian Richards. Yes. And Ian is really sharp. He's a smart, a really smart guy too. Not that, we got to say, he's smart, but he definitely, I believe he's qualified for the position. He went to University of Miami Law School. He's been a member of the Florida Bar for 18 years. He's a member of the Florida Bar, 70% criminal, civil cases, 30% criminal. And he talks about how he has community involvement. He's a mentor. He does a lot of work with special needs children. He's a member of the Rotary Club. He's a mentor with Father's Heart. And he's president of some homeowners association. He's so he does some stuff with his church, Bethel AME, that type of thing. So a lot of community involvement, and no issues with the bar. Okay. So now, are we finally at group 50? Yeah, we're at group 50.
And it's kind of interesting.
All right. We're gonna talk about the experience here, right? So there's an incumbent in this race, and we're just gonna leave it at that. Judge Regina Hawkins is the incumbent in this race, and she's running. Linda Alley is running against her because Judge Hawkins is the incumbent in the race. So we have Judge Alley, who she's also a member of Gator Nation. She's been a member of the Florida Bar for over 20 years, a member of the Broward Bar for over 20 years. She's been in private practice the whole time. I'm doing a lot of med mal, civil lit type work. 100% of her work is civil litigation, 0% criminal experience, no trial experience whatsoever, 0 civil, 0 criminal. She doesn't do any trials. When we talk about community involvement, she's a member of the Florida.
Is with I see most of her community experience is with legal organizations. Matter of fact, it looks like it's all legal.
All legal. Florida Bar, Broward County Bar, American Association, Justice, Women Trial Lawyers, Florida Trial, Women Trial, it's all that. And we all got all them under our belts, right? Like, so that's not even really community engagement, right? That's more like professional associations. And she put that as community experience. I don't see anything. And even when we talk about her summary is like, this is what she says: I work hard, I work smart, I will devote myself to my position. I will not let anything get in the way of fulfilling my duties to the utmost of my abilities. I have never held a job where I accepted anything less than the best I could do. Being a judge will not be any different. I will make Broward County proud that they elected me on the bench. That's it. You good? Like, what else you want to say? That's all I saw.
That's all I saw.
Yeah. Yes. Not a lot here. Okay.
All right. So her opponent is Regina Hawkins. Regina
Yes.
Hawkins is being in that particular race. In all fairness, all disclosure, she's currently under investigation by the Florida Bar or by the Judicial Nominating Commission for an incident that happened where I guess one of the clerks or one of the people in her office or in her courtroom is saying that she laid hands on him, in a choking manner, and she's saying that she was playing around. It was done in a joking manner, but I guess he's saying that he didn't feel that way. So she's currently being investigated for that, and that has not been resolved as yet.
And that's been going on for a long time. I think it's over a year at this point. I think that investigation has been going on for 13, 14 months. Yeah. With no resolution.
Her community experience, she's a member of Koinonia Worship Center. She's also a member of Lead Nation. Do you know what LEAD Nation is?
No, I don't.
Okay. And then she's a member of Fathers MIA, TJ Reddick Bar Association, which is the Black Bar Association in Broward, Gwen S. Cherry Association, which is the Women's Bar Association in Miami-Dade County. She's also a member of Delta Sigma sorority, a member of NAACP. And then it says here that she's a member of the Federalist Society, which is a little strange, shall I say? It's a little odd. The Federalist Society is a Republican, conservative organization. Doesn't seem to mesh very well with the NAACP, but maybe that just shows her well-roundedness, I suppose.
Okay, so I found out what LEAD is. LEAD is the Leaders by Empowerment, Activists by Development organization. And it's in Hallandale, Florida.
She's a former prosecutor within the Broward County. Within Broward County, she was a prosecutor since 2013 to now. And before that, she was in private practice. She did civil work.
And she was also a correction officer. So she worked in corrections before she went to law school.
So is this one of the questions you had? Like, how do you go from corrections to
No. She was in corrections. She was in corrections. No, that lady was a probation officer. To me, that's different, man. Like probation to the state attorney's office. Listen, you were like, these fools need to be in jail. That's what I think. But I'm not. Those aren't the words that came out of that candidate's mouth. So I don't want to say it. But to me, to go from probation to become a prosecutor, it's like you saw something and you was like, that's what I think.
Almost like you have a vendetta.
And they won't answer that question. I'm like, just tell me why. Like, what you saw that made you want to do that, right? No. So she was in corrections, and let me not talk really. I don't want to say being a prosecutor is a bad thing, because sometimes I think like had I known maybe a little bit different, I might have considered that profession, because a lot of times they do have power in terms of like what offers that they can make.
They always have power. Let's get that right. I mean, you can be the Franklin Day type of prosecutor.
Yeah.
And you can really wield some great influence in a person's life, or you could be on the other side, as we know of a lot of prosecutors who are they're inflexible. They don't want to listen. They have their mind set already. You're a criminal. They want to punish you, and that's the end of that story. So it goes both ways. They have all the power in the criminal justice system.
Yeah. So sometimes I think like, if I wanted to make more influence, that might have been what I should have done. Because like I told you in the beginning that I was a public defender. And one of the things I didn't like about being a public defender was the jail time. I mean, I had clients, and then again, I was in a different part of Florida that's very different from South Florida. And, I had a woman that had gotten arrested for a petty theft. And mind you, the store got all of that stuff back. So she didn't leave with anything. And she had to spend 5 months in the county jail. I'm like, but it was $200 worth of stuff and y'all got all your stuff back. Like, this woman has children. Like, aren't you taking that into consideration? And she was away from her kids for 5 months. She had to find somebody to take care of them. And so like that part of it, I didn't like, but I think if I was able to be a prosecutor, I could have made a, maybe say, no, this woman has kids, you're just making the situation worse. I mean, and the thing about it was she was still in school clothes. Like she needed the kids. I'm not saying what she did was right, but there could have been a little bit more sympathy I think on the side of the prosecutors in that instance, particularly then where there was no loss really, so. But
this is the importance of having a good judge as well, which is what we're trying to educate the people on. You need to have someone who can look at that particular situation, and even if the prosecutor is being inflexible and unreasonable, the judge is the backstop. They could be the person to say, I'm not sentencing this person to 5 months. I'm not sentencing this person to 5 days.
Yes.
They could do that. They have the power to do that,
right,
because sentencing is their domain. It's not the prosecutor's domain. The prosecutor can make better offers, but ultimately the judges get to determine the sentencing. But let's just finish up on Virginia Hawkins.
Yes.
She does have some impressive awards and honors. It says here that she was recognized by Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, which is a service organization for outstanding dedication and community service. She was given Legacy Magazine's Most Influential and Prominent Woman in Business and Leadership recipient in 2015. She was also given a Certificate of Honor, a resident lecturer for Fathers MIA, the Healing Circle in 2018. So she's been involved in the community, and she's been recognized by some of these community organizations for her work.
Yes, definitely, and to me, and she's also a lecturer, and to me, I think, I went to an event last year, and she was the keynote speaker at that particular event. So she's been invited to several different organizations, and if you see her speak, she's dynamic, and she has a very even temperament, and I think she is the best candidate for this group. And to me, hands down, she's more qualified than her opponent. All other things aside, she's the most qualified. She already had the job. She was doing the job. She's put in the work. She has the experience. She has the community engagement. She has the temperament. And I think she's definitely the person that we should choose, and everyone should choose in Group 50 for Circuit Court.
I voted for her.
Okay.
So there we go.
There we go. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking to me today. You know, I'm gonna actually I'll probably end up cutting up these videos so people that do it by groups, so they don't have to sit, because we ended up talking for like an hour and a half, right? And you know, it's important for us to get the information out. So what I will do is probably have I'll edit out the videos by group. So if someone wants to just find out what our thoughts were on a particular judge in a particular group, they can do that. If they don't want to sit through the hour and 30 minutes. So thank you so much, Frantz Jahra McLawrence, for taking the time out to, you know, inform the people and make your recommendations for who people should vote for judge in each group. Anything else you want to add to the people?
I said, my pleasure, and thank you for having me, and I will speak with you again, Sandra.
Yes, thank you. And how long are you going to be gone for? A while, right? Because, you know, you've been out of town for a minute.
I just got out of.
And I saw your fake bracelet.